Hello, my name is Mr. Ian Forbett. I am the Head of Agriculture here at Knox Grammar School, and today I'll be presenting to you information to help you choose your subject selections from Year 8 into Year 9, providing information on agriculture, what we study in Year 9, Year 10, and also an overview into Year 11 and Year 12. In agriculture in Year 9, we study a range of topics across the 2 years, 9 and 10. Animal production and plant production are explored, and their relationships to you as a person and where your food comes from and your fibre, the environment, the local and wider community, and also the Australian economy. It's more than just what is a cow, this is a sheep, chase a sheep around a dusty paddock. It's an in-depth science looking at how plants and animals function, how the soil functions, how we can manage those, how we can manage them to meet sustainability, food security, how we can manage them to meet market demands as well as consumer requirements at the time. It fits under the subject of STEM as a science, and back in 2016 Knox climbed up 12 places, as you can see there. There is a lot of potential in agriculture in the future. The Australian government's starting to realise that. Some of you I've spoken to in Year 8 Tech in terms of the realisation that some students didn't actually understand where their food came from, thinking yogurt was produced out the back of Coles behind the doors. And something I wanted you to ponder is, did you grow any food during lockdown? Did you or your parents start to wonder where your food came from and how secure your food source was, both in terms of availability and quality? If you move forwards, and this is a long-term picture I'm pushing for you here, in that we in agriculture are moving upwards in terms of our opportunities for business as well as our recognition in the community. And you can see the Deloitte started there, pushing agribusiness way up into that top corner. In term 1, we look at introduction to agriculture. We look at a bit of history of agriculture, and you set yourselves up a vegetable garden that you will manage all the way through term 1, term 2, term 3, and term 4. Towards the end of term 1, we start looking at the Australian and sheep industry. We look at prime lamb production. We look at the wool industry and lambs that are born either towards the end of 2019, into 2020, or into early part of 2021 will become lambs that you as a Year 9 student will manage in addition to your vegetable garden. That rolls through into term 2, all the way through term 2 and into term 3. Early part of term 3, we start looking at poultry production, both egg and meat. We get broilers in, and they're raised through end of term 3 into term 4. Towards the end of term 4, we look at some smaller units of work in regards to pasture and viticulture. Regularly, there are lambs born here at school. We had a drop of 7 lambs in the last couple of weeks to 5 ewes. And they're lambs that Year 9 students will continue to manage through the rest of the year. And then early into next year, before you as a Year 9 student will pick them up and then manage new lambs again. In terms of our excursions, while this year has been a bit different, we understand why. There's traditionally been a 3-day excursion to the northwest of New South Wales, heading up to AgQuip. The likelihood is that will continue into Year 9 next year for 2021. There's normally another day trip or 2, pending what work we're doing at the time of the year and excursion availability fitting in with the school calendar, such as a trip off to Sydney Markets or down to Belgenny Farm, Dairy Number 9 down there in Camden. Part of our role here in agriculture at Knox Grammar School is understanding the importance of plants and their ability to feed both our livestock but also us as humans, and how we can manage plant production. You can see there a rather successful sorghum crop with some Year 9 students walking through. In terms of assessments, term 1 has task 1, which is a vegetable production farm diary. Task 2 is in term 2, and it's an in-class test. Task 3 is a presentation of viva voce on poultry, any aspect of poultry production. And then task 4 is your yearly exam, which traditionally is a multiple choice type exam. We do tend to travel all over the state, looking at all different parts of agriculture and recognising that what works in the northwest doesn't work in the southeast, and so on, and understanding that the different products produced in different areas based on climate and market requirements and proximity to markets. That was a opportune experience a few years ago where we managed to see cotton harvesting, and the boys just getting a grasp of the size of the machinery and the size of the land that it's working. And the other thing that we firmly believe in is the ability to follow paddock to plate and eating what you grow. So here you can see in the background there on the table, there's some potatoes that the boys have grown here in the ag plot that were roasted along with the chicken. The broilers that these Year 9 boys grew in term 3 into term 4 were processed and then cooked here in the boarding kitchens for the boys to appreciate the effort that went into what they had grown and the food they had produced. In Year 10, term 1, we look at cattle production, both beef and dairy, and that also coincides with some boys working in the cattle show team. Term 2, we look into cropping production, and we use Farming Simulator, and I'll explain that a bit more in a moment, looking at cereal and pulse and oil seeds. Term 3, we look at a city farming unit trying to produce as much product as possible in a smaller area, e.g. around our urban ag plot here at school, using hydroponics or aquaculture or aquaponics. And in term 4, we look at some of the alternative agriculture industries, such as buffalo or crocodile or hemp or bees or honey, that kind of area. Things that are large industries in themselves, but often what people don't consider mainstream agriculture. In terms of cattle at Knox, there is a cattle show team that runs. It was inhibited this year, but normally there will be a cattle show team that runs, and we often head off to 2 shows, Wing and Beef Week, or we did explore going to the Southern Beef competition down there in Nowra this year as well, and Upper Hunter Beef Bonanza, as well as the Uni School Steer competition run through Western Sydney University. We also use Farming Simulator here at Knox. I found a few years ago that boys struggle to grasp the processes. While we can go and set up a veggie garden, we can handle the sheep, we can handle the cattle, we can set ourselves up a hydroponic system, it's rather tricky to establish a broadacre crop in Wahroonga. So the use of Farming Simulator gave boys an appreciation, and watching those students moving through into Year 11 and Year 12, understanding the technology, the terminology that is associated with broadacre production of crops through the use of Farming Simulator has benefited those boys immensely. So going back for a moment, we're not gaming boys. We're actually using this for productive work, setting tasks around it, using it to explore different management options and how we manage different paddocks. The game, by the time Farming Simulator 19 and 20 is rolled around, is quite realistic. It still has a few little issues, but we use those as learning experiences as well, and assessing what's wrong with the game based on what we know from real life situations. Here's some examples of some of the hydroponics and aquaculture systems that boys have explored or created themselves. We work on a presentation around cattle breeds and estimated breeding values in term 1. Term 2 has a class test, normal short answer, multiple choice type test. Term 3 has a report into the city farming production you've explored and what you have created. And term 4 is again that multiple choice yearly exam. We do go on a couple of excursions in Year 10 in addition to the cattle show team. 2 or 3 day excursion to the south coast of New South Wales. In the last few years, we've been able to get into robotic dairy, oyster farms, standard dairies as well, and looking at the units that we studied that year, so cattle and hydroponics aquaculture. And then pending the calendar, whether we can get into the Sydney fish markets was on the cards this year, and hopefully something we can get back into next year and the following years is looking at the fish markets as well. Some of the trips we've been on and the areas we get to, that was a silver perch farm up around Gloucester. getting onto cattle properties and actually working with cattle where the opportunity presents itself, being able to mark calves, work with mobs of cattle as well, understanding how to work in a set of yards safely, and letting boys, for some boys that have never been near cattle before, just getting an appreciation of cattle, given that they've worked with sheep back in Year 9. And then, as I've alluded to before, we also have a cattle show team that runs from Year 9 to Year 11. Boys in Year 9 tend to pick up around May, working into the uni schools program with Western Sydney. The Year 10 boys head off to Wingham then, and the Upper Hunter Beef Bonanza, as well as working again in the show team for the uni schools comp. And then Year 11 boys, if they want to carry back on, acting more of a mentor role, assisting those Year 9 and Year 10 students. We've also set ourselves up a sheep show team as well. Boys have been working, and again this year was a little bit different, but setting some feedlot lambs as well as showing ewes and a ram at some of the local shows as well. There's some boys at Wingham Beef Week a few years ago. A quick overview of Year 11 and Year 12 is that Year 11 we have a look at how agriculture works at a deeper level and what's gone wrong and how we're going to fix it. Understanding how plants function at a more structural level, looking at the function of roots and leaves and stems and flowers, how we can manipulate reproduction, is then an area that we follow through into Year 12. We're looking at all that scientific knowledge that we gained back in Year 11, building on what we might have picked up in Year 9 and Year 10. And how can we manage it for a more sustainable future into Year 11, into Year 12, is what we look at. How we can manage it for a more sustainable future moving forwards, how we can meet food security needs and moving forwards to fix the problems that were created over the last 200 years of Australian agriculture. In terms of our success, in terms of band 6s, last year there was an average of 75, 77% band 5s and 6s, with 26% of the boys getting a band 6. So that was a cohort of 23 boys, with 6 of them getting a band 6, the majority then getting band 5s. I'd like you to ponder that for a moment. While the statistics are a few years old, if anything, it has maintained there was abundance of jobs for graduates in agriculture. In terms of moving forwards, you study ag in Year 9 and 10, if you like it, moving into Year 11 and Year 12, that there really is any job you could think of as an agricultural equivalent. If you want to move into economics, moving into some of the buying and selling of product, working for companies like Goodman Fielder, working for some of the major Coles or Woolworths even, has huge opportunities in terms of marketing, in terms of legal advice, in terms of economics, in terms of environmental management, scientists, researchers. It really is a case of choose what you have an interest in and enjoy it, boys. If you have any questions, there are my details. I'm located under the Academy of Global Competency with the other teacher, Miss Erin Neal. There's a staff room down here and some of the hydroponic setups from boys in the past. If you feel you want to come and have a look at the ag plot, parents, students, send me an email, let me know, and we'll organise a time to meet up and have a look. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering any questions if you have any.